How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Before we get into this video, I just want to give a huge thank you to everybody who's watching this, because we just crossed over the threshold of 6,000 subscribers. Support so far throughout the off season has been amazing. If you have not done so already, I urge you to like this video, to subscribe to the channel, because I promise we are only going to pump out some more content as the year progresses. We're only going to grow the channel more, so I would greatly appreciate it. But I did just want to say, in general, thank you guys so much for the support. Okay, let's go ahead and now get back into the video. So it feels like we started off this off season talking about the New York Subliners.
So honestly, Paco, good luck in the future. You're dead to me.
And given the fact that Optic Texas became more in the news, dropping their team, now reuniting, they were the hot topic. And while they still are, the Atlanta phase over the past few days, given the free agency tweets coming in from Arstees, Atlanta has taken over that spotlight. But what I really want to do is make sure that we don't shift the focus too far away from the Subliners. Now, the reason for that is because they hold a lot of interesting pieces right now and are honestly one of the hottest destinations for a lot of the incredible talent that still sits in the free agent pool. And now that the whole HYDRA to Optic Texas rumors have fizzled out, now New York can start to really focus on rebuilding their team. And we know that coming into Roster Mania, one of the first discussions that we had was about Crim6, about Paul, the fact that Crim6 is no longer here, the fact that Paul X is now on the bench, all of the drama. Throughout all of it, as the dust has settled, NYSL have stayed true, and it sounds like they are giving HYDRA the keys moving into this offseason, aka we're going to make decisions and we want HYDRA to be alongside of us throughout that whole process. So I want to address this video basically the same way that I imagine New York is handling these things, right? Trying to work alongside HYDRA, figure out what pieces do we have, what pieces do we want to try and acquire to take what was a crazy, at times amazing, yet for the most part incredibly disappointing season, and translate it into the best season that we have had so far in the CDL. So if I was the New York Subliners, the way that I would handle step one, if you will, is not just to get HYDRA onto the team, but it's also to assess what players do we have, right? What are we working with right now, which is technically Kismet, who would sit in the SMG position, really the only guy by definition that would be in the starting lineup. Paul, who is currently listed as a restricted free agent, by definition, I guess, would be on the bench, but he can take up that flex role. So you have two pieces, one of which that I think is likely that you use, another one that I don't believe that they are interested in using. So let's go ahead and talk about the one piece that very well could be in our team moving into next year. And that guy is Kismet, right? Brought into the New York Subliners camp right before the Pro-Am took place. And ever since he joined this team, he has made a massive impact. And it felt like one by one, the problems that NYSL had started to fall by the wayside. You know, not being able to win hard points, not being as reliant on their clutch ability in search and destroy, the communication issues with the SMG line in comparison to the ARs, all of those things started to whittle away as Kismet got more and more comfortable with the team and in the starting lineup. You know, he comes in and is a great addition alongside HYDRA. From day one, it sounded like Crim6, and, you know, somebody who is one of the, you know, most experienced players of all time, he even went out there and said, listen, as soon as Kismet got here and we learned about the information that he had, he became the teacher and we became the students. We listened to what he had to say. It is also incredibly rare, right, to find a younger SMG who is as talented as he is, yet that is also willing to be in an unselfish role while also being a great in-game communicator. So we've talked a lot about the positives of Kismet, and I guess really the primary criticism around why NYSL wouldn't consider grabbing somebody who I felt like was such a great piece added to the team was that, you know, was this just a one title type of season from Kismet? Because he was a part of that Texas Nation team, you know, alongside General, alongside Havoc, who would obviously later join into the CDL with the Minnesota Rocker. Was this kind of like a one title type of thing for Kismet? And while I do think that that is a conversation that needs to happen, it is a worthy critique, I just feel like the role that he plays can translate into multiple titles in the future, right? It seems like since that 2020 season where he was a part of the Paris Legion back in MW, he has figured out what kind of player that he now is. He was prone to having the inconsistent game whenever he was the guy. Paris looked at him to be their star slayer, and not always would he be there to put up the greatest of numbers. So the fact that I guess he's realized that or come more into his own, he now becomes this option that doesn't have to have an incredible map, doesn't have to go +10, +15 every single map or every single series. He then allows for his biggest strength, his communication, then to take over, allows for his best attributes to be there, and then has those explosive games, and at times can take over series. As you can tell, I'm a pretty big Kismet fan. So with that in mind, if you are New York, you've recognized the piece that you have in the starting lineup, potentially could be somebody like Kiz. So if we do technically in this situation have HYDRA, we do have Kiz, now it's time to talk about the ARs. And from what it sounds like, based on the early roster mania sound bites, the rumors, even the tweets between the players, Skies from the Florida Mutineers was HYDRA's first choice. So when we talk about Skies' history, right, he has spent the last 3 seasons of the CDL all with the Florida Mutineers. He has been at times an MVP candidate. There was an occasion where his team went on to win 3 home series titles. The only problem with that is that it all happened in Modern Warfare, right? There has been Cold War and there has been Vanguard since that game. And really since then, while Florida have had their moments, they have not really been consistent contenders. And so it sounds like now in free agency, Skies is an unrestricted free agent. It's almost similar, but not exactly the same as Octane, because obviously Florida has seen way better days than Seattle did in their first 2 years. But similar in the fact that much like how Octane was ready to move on, ready to move into a bigger opportunity, into a spotlight, maybe outgrown their team could be the word to use, Skies is almost in a similar conversation to that, right? They are ready for a bigger challenge, even if that means not being the go-to star. Skies has been one of the most gifted gun skill ARs that we have had in all 3 seasons of the CDL up until this point. And now a chance to be on New York to help headline the new era of the Subliners along with HYDRA would give him the spotlight that I'm sure he's been waiting for, and really put that talent that we've talked about so often over these past few years to the test. So if you are New York in this moment, right, we just talked about it. You've got HYDRA. Technically in this situation, you do have Kismet no matter what. If HYDRA is going to be here, you should have a good chance of getting Skies, because these two sounds like they are ready to play with each other. So that is 3 guaranteed positions, and you do also have Paul X on the bench. But given that, like I said, Kismet I think is a very good option for New York, what I would do if I am New York is to look at the top of the line ARs and figure out what it is that the team wants, right? Figure out what the team's biggest need is if you move forward with those 3 players. And depending on who that is, I would advertise, right? I would talk with these top of the line ARs and basically show, hey, listen, we have got Skies, we have got HYDRA. And if you aren't 100% guaranteed on somebody like Skies, then what I would say if you're New York is try to get a little bit of a combo working together, right? So if we have this situation where, and I've talked about it in previous videos, Arcades and Attach almost become this combo together where Arcades wants to be the main and Attach wants to be the flex. Maybe LAG could be a destination. Maybe Minnesota could be a destination. Maybe New York could be a destination. This is a great chance if you are in YSL to either advertise Skies and HYDRA. Hey, you could be our 3rd, you could be our 4th, or work on trying to get 2 of these AR players in a package deal. And when I say a package deal, it's not as if you're trading pieces, but you basically just want to have these 2 players on the same track. Whenever I've heard about different roster mania free agency things, it's very common for players to want to bulk together, you know, go to a team as a pair. It's very, very likely that some of these guys are already in a situation like that. So like I said, you could maybe get Arcades and Attach if you know that both of them want to play with each other. Arcades and Cammy if they want to play alongside of each other. If it's Clayster and Attach, well, hey, there's a great opportunity here as well. And those 2 guys are unrestricted free agents, so it'd make it a little bit easier on top of all of that. So let's say, for example, that worst comes to worst for New York. So Arcades, Attach, Cammy out of the picture. What do you do in this moment? And let's say you do have Skies, maybe you don't have Skies. What do you really do? And what I would say if you're New York and if you manage to strike out on all 3 of those options, and very commonly in roster mania is this always going to be a thing, you pick up the pieces. So for example, if Attach were to go to Atlanta, who does that leave? Arcades. There we go. So there is a piece that could be available. While restricted, you still have a chance to get somebody like him. If Arcades goes to Seattle, well, awesome, right? Because you have accuracy, who now could be available as your main AR, and I think would be actually a very good piece to this team potentially on who that flex would be. Now, if Arceus, let's say, goes to Toronto, if Attach goes to Toronto, if Cammy, well, he wouldn't go to Toronto, but you get my point, right? That would leave maybe Insight available. So there is a very interesting runoff that can happen where it's like, hey, your trash, which isn't technically trash, but your trash can be my treasure. Your piece that you just replaced, I am looking to acquire, and I think there is a lot of great talent who are going to be swapped for each other, and that could be New York's opportunity to get a player that fits perfectly for their system, who by definition isn't listed as a free agent. And I really can't stress it enough, right? For every single organization, if MW2 is going to be a 2-year title, getting players locked in on these 2-year, 3-year deals could be a massive investment. So if you are New York and you're like, listen, we know for a fact, right, this HYDRA guy is going to be one of the best SMGs for the next, however many years to come. Well, that is a great opportunity, because if MW2 happens to be a 2-year title and he starts off having a great year in MW2, well, you don't just have one great season out of HYDRA, you then have 2. If you want to pick up somebody like Arceus, who you think is going to be a guaranteed player who's going to be solid for years to come, well, awesome, because if he starts off great in MW2, that's not just one season, that is going to be 2. Like I said, if it is going to be a 2-year title. So this is a very important roster mania period for a lot of different teams out there, because the teams who do well early are going to do well for a long time. The teams who strike out early are going to be in constant struggles for maybe not just one season, but for 2 seasons. And for a organization, for a franchise in New York who seems very eager to try to get back on board, to try to get away from these failed experiments, this is why I feel like they could be a front runner, not just because they need it, but because they really want it. And as we pull up what is the current landscape of the league right now, I would say if I am New York and you have the pick of the litter, let's say that every single free agent that is either going to be out there or is out there is available to you. If you have one player outside of HYDRA, so let's say that HYDRA is guaranteed, that's the guy that you go for. Now it's about these flex AR positions, maybe a secondary SMG. Regardless, who do you go for? And to me, the number one piece that I would try and acquire, if Arceus, for example, is available, is I try and get Arceus with every single fiber of my being. Like, I am trying to give Alec as much of a reason to come to New York as possible. Make it feel like home for the exact reason that I just said, right? Arceus has been an unbelievable player ever since he joined the league, right? Ever since he had that Infinite Warfare season back in like 2017, he has been a top caliber player, or been, by definition, a top caliber player, but just surrounded by even better slaying talent to where it hasn't been highlighted as much. You know that he is guaranteed to be a phenomenal player for years to come. The same thing can be said about HYDRA, obviously a younger player, but like I said, if I'm New York, these are the guys that I'm investing around, right? These are the guys that I'm saying, listen, it's about the team, but you too are who this roster is about. These other guys can be replaced, but you too are the guys that we're looking out for most. And so if I was New York, my first priority, if I have the choice and I get the number 1 pick in the draft, it's to try and get Arceus onto the team. The reason for that isn't just because of those things that I just listed, but also when it comes down to a flex role, the players who are available, right, in these AR/flex positions, a majority of them are natural flexes. So if you really want to get an Attach, well, great, he works as a flex. He actually doesn't really want to play a main AR. If you get it in Cammy, he's never really played a main AR, so he can be great as a flex. If you want to try and get in somebody like Skies originally, well, that's awesome, because Skies by definition is a flex more than a main AR. He can obviously play both, but you get my standpoint. So I feel like for New York, it makes the most sense to try and grab a player like Arceus for the reasons that we just listed, but also because of who the 4th of these rosters can be. And if you also do want to try and replace this SMG role that Kismet currently sits in, the positive is that you have a great in-game leader, somebody who is a phenomenal voice on the team, somebody who has played winning Call of Duty basically for every single year of his time competing, but especially these last 2 seasons under Atlanta FaZe. He has worked with the Beezy. He has worked with Simp. If New York is wanting him, HYDRA, to be like a Beezy and Simp, well, great. You have that opportunity now with somebody like Arcedes who has literally done that. Now, I will say, let's say, for example, Arcedes is not on the table. Like I said, let's say that he goes to Seattle, which I think is probably his best option. So that would leave a player like Accuracy on the table. That could be a great pick for New York. If Attach is available, similar qualities to Arcedes, I think still not 100% guaranteed how Attach is going to play because it'd be his first real season with the AR in his hands. Maybe this is what the team could look like. Let's say that Cammy is available. Well, cool. Cammy can fit into the flex role. Skies is the AR. Is the chemistry going to be its best? Probably not, but there is still a lot of positives there, and the list can really go on, right? From the list of free agents that we have, I know I've talked in depth about, Clayster's been getting a lot of calls from teams. Well, maybe he could slide in here. Skies could be the flex. Clay is the AR. Him and HYDRA are back. Clay and New York are back, which again, I don't know if that happens, but you see my standpoint. There is a little bit of hesitancy with any single player that you put on this team. The one that I have zero hesitancy about is Arcedes. And so that is the reason why, if I am New York, you try and grab HYDRA, obviously off the start. You evaluate the pieces that you have, aka Kismet, maybe Paul, which again, that's somebody that we could talk about being in this flex. If things don't work out, you go, let's say things go horribly, right? You could always slide in Paul to this position, but you do all those things first, and then you instantly recognize the market of ARs. You try to get a combo together. You try to advertise the pieces that you have already on this team, and you go from there. As I said, for this New York franchise who really struggled last year, and while there were some great moments for this team, you do feel for them because it sounded like they were incredibly all in on the Clay and the Crim 6 type of motive. That obviously does not work out for them. You want to see this team, you really want to see this franchise, this market, this fan base who was amazing at Major 4 have a great team. And so I feel like for the Subliners, moving into next year, they have a lot of quality pieces, but the importance of the steps in which you do it is also incredibly important. Now, again, I'm not a GM. This is just the way that I would do it, and I think it's a fun way to highlight what could be a great rebuild chance for NYSL. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have not done so already, like I talked about at the start, you can feel free to like, you can feel free to subscribe to the channel, and let me know down in the comments, what do you think about this possible rebuild with the Subliners? If they've got HYDRA, who do you really want to see them go for after that point? Is there somebody that I talked about? Is there maybe a player that I didn't talk about? What would be your dream 4-man lineup for this NYSL team? Let me know down in the comments. But thank you guys so much for checking out this video. More awesome off-season roster mania content still to come, and I'll see you back on the channel very soon.